Okay, so this is where we're going to go. We're going to end up making a couple noses and practice. And again, like I said, I was doing this anatomy series primarily for me to practice, but also to show you. So when you're starting with the nose, you really want to start and think about the fact that it's just a couple of circles like this. And then from there, it's just a cylinder going up. And then you have another little cylinder, kind of diamond at the top for where the brow would be. So let me draw a couple of these, like so. And put this on here, and then do one from the side, because even from the side, it still starts out as a couple of circles, and then your cylinder would go back. So, keeping in mind these general shapes of spheres, I'm going to start adding in some shadow lines and some ideas. So essentially, you connect the two circles with this little almost M kind of shape, and then think about where it's coming up and start adding in some details and shadows for which way the light's going to be coming. So the great thing about noses is that they're all different. So, you know, look at your nose, take some selfies, and look at your face, and look at your nose specifically. How does it look from different angles? Google search celebrities and look at their noses. You can even see the ones that were, you know, worked on, and kind of play around with that. But really, when you're doing this, remember the fact that you're really just putting shadow on circles, and you're putting shadows on a cylinder for the actual long part of the nose. But the tip of the nose, the nostrils, they're just cylinders, okay? So I'm just going to keep scribbling in some shadows here real quick, and I'm going to switch over to the marker tool next. I am really finding I like this marker tool. I haven't used it that much in the past, but I'm using it more and more because I like the end result. So the marker tool is really, the way it's set up is just the general settings. I haven't adjusted anything here. It's just the default marker that when you click the marker tool is the one you get. So what I'm doing is throwing in some light blues, blue grays, and then coming back to add some additional darkers. So as I get them blended and it smears, I use the Alt key to pick up different colors, and that way I can just blend it, pick up a color, blend it, pick up a color. But the marker tool will blend the other stuff that you have laid down, so it'll make a black smear more into a black and so forth. So, but that's what I'm doing right here, and just keep blending it around, keeping in mind that it's a cylinder sticking out from the face, and thinking about how is that light going to curve around it and everything else. So since the shadow tones are more blue, I grab a little bit of yellow tone there and start trying to play around with it and introduce it into some of the darkers. It really doesn't matter at this stage. I mean, a gray is a gray for the most part, but it can affect the end result a little bit. But I decided just to go with the blues because I like how the blue-gray really plays over top of the other. So don't want to forget the septum underneath the nose, where it comes out, and into the lip part of it, which would look totally different if somebody had a mustache and so forth. And that may be the next thing I do. Personally, I've got a goatee, so you know, maybe I'll play around with that next. But again, like I said, I wanted to play with these to practice some more with the marker tool, but really to practice my anatomy. Just like anybody else, I've got to keep practicing, or I'm going to not be able to draw anymore, because drawing is one of those skills you've got to keep on it, otherwise you will start to lose it. It doesn't tend to be like riding a bike so much as the fact that you got muscle memory and stuff like that involved, whereas you know, if you haven't ridden a bike in a while, you can jump on it and do a bike. You may not be able to do BMX stuff, but you can do a bike. So, all right, so anyway, back to this. So that sphere, I'm thinking about that a little bit. I want to round it out some, not quite that much, so I'll get rid of a little bit of this. But, and then start blending the colors back a little bit so that it looks like the light is really cascading over it. And again, Alt, tap, pick up that color, and then just keep painting on it. So I need to throw some highlights in here, preferably these little bit of yellowish white highlights, because if my rest of my stuff's done in grays, then in blue grays, then I want to go with an opposite or warm color and start doing that. So yellow's not really the opposite of blue, but you get the idea. It's a warmer color. All right, so let's start on the side one. So the side one, same thing. You've got the general shape of the outline. It's going to follow that circle up and back. It can take a lot of different shapes other than just that basic circle, so I'm not going to stick with that entirely, but I'm going to keep it in mind. So as I start shaping all this out and fleshing it out, if you will. So here, I just want to throw in some basic color, some basic tones, and then from there start really sculpting the paint or the marker tool around it. Because even right there, I mean, that's a basic side nose. You know, you could stop there. I'm going to go a little further, but you could stop there. So, let's see. I think I'm going to go with a little bit of this. Yeah, I'll keep this blue. Let's start throwing in some shadows. So throwing this in, remembering the nostril. So the nostril can curve up a little bit more with it. It can curve forward. It really depends on how the front of the nose is shaped. Does it point out more? Does it point down some? Is it flat nose? Is it pointy nose? And all that. Again, noses are completely individual and can be completely different things as long as you remember the basic anatomy of, okay, it's a bulb tip. It's bulb on the sides for the nostrils, and then from there it starts kind of playing around. So, but from a side angle, you want to think, well, how does that connect to the lips? How does it connect to the cheek? So that's kind of what I'm starting to think about here. Is like, okay, if I'm going to do the septum, how do I do that? How are my shadows? So from the side, it's really, it plays more of a factor, light does, to really separate it out from the rest. So, you know, just kind of play around here, smearing some darks, tones, and some different values. Put the cheek here so you can kind of see what I was talking about. A little bit more of the lip. All right, so again, see how it kind of connects. You could really play around with, again, what shape are the lips, what shape are the cheeks. Is this an obese person? Is it a skinny person? The little laugh lines, as I call them, come up to the nostril. You can feel that on your own cheek, where the cheek curves down naturally into the mouth. You know, and see what you think about how that looks. And just play around with the shadows. Sometimes it's really deep. You know, especially if it's an older person, sometimes it's really not. Are they laughing? Are they just looking forward? How much more do you want to push and pull on the shadows? Practice these things, you know, play around. Because again, you can't do it wrong, especially if you're doing it digitally, you know. I try not to use the undo tool much, but I will erase here. I want to shape this a little differently. So let me kind of come in here with the eraser tool and change that nose up just a little. Look, I just did a rhinoplasty. So, but yeah, so yeah, kind of like that. Maybe, yeah, let's go back to the marker tool. All right, so I'm going to bring it out a little bit, you know. This would be kind of a little bit of an upturned nose, like this. Sculpt this down a little bit, make it a little pointier. Bring that back. Yeah. Too bad. All right, let's see if I can get that shape. I just didn't like it. I'm just kind of fussing around here a little bit with the look of it. Trying to think about how does it play out. And because I don't really have a particular nose in mind that I'm trying to do, you know, it just gives me a chance to play around and mess with stuff. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. And that's, like I said, that's what I encourage you to do. You need to play around with this. You need to practice with it. You need to just do as many of these as you can. I think I'm just going to do, originally I was planning to do these 3, but I think I'm just going to do these 2, like I showed in the beginning. So I'll just stick with that and go there. But you know, going back to the marker tool, as you can see, that's really what I'm using in this. I just love the way it breaks up the tones. It gives it a much more, to me, doing it this way almost gives it more of a painterly look and an oil brush look than the oil brush does. For faces anyway, it really lets you play with the colors and the tones faster. And, you know, and if you do something like this, if you're working in grays, it really gets you to focus on the shadows and the lights to make it work. And then from here, you can put another layer over top of it and just do an overlay and play around with it. This is all one layer. I haven't made any extra layers or anything. I'm just scribbling over top of what's there, sculpting it, pushing it, pulling it. until I get something that I kind of like. And we're about there. I think that's pretty close to what it is. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you learned something from it. And leave me some comments below, some questions. If you have something that you want me to draw next or paint next, let me know that too. I may even, do a dragon or something next as well. So, but again, I hope you've really gotten something out of this. Make sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe, share it with friends, especially homeschoolers. If I'm a homeschooler as well. We homeschool our kids, so if you have anybody that is homeschooling, share it with them. It could be a great resource. So I appreciate it. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks.